Welcome back to Queen City Corals. I'm Graham, and today I have a very special video for you guys. So a couple weeks ago, we were in Denver. You can check out our reef stock video where we toured the show there in Denver. This week, we have a video showcasing the Reef Builders Studio. And the reason it's been so long since I filmed this versus when I posted it is because Jake Adams really meant a lot to me as a reefer. I listened to every episode of Reef Therapy. I would watch Reef Builders. I'd read the articles that he would post, things like that. I think he was very influential not only on the hobby as a whole, but also on me personally. And so I really wanted to do this video justice. I wanted to do the studio justice and really showcase all of the different unique pieces he had there, because it really is an amazing facility where you can see a lot of different corals that even I, who have this store that I've operated for 3 years, I've seen thousands and thousands of corals. There were some pieces that I've never seen or even been able to get my hands on that he had there at the studio, which is really not only impressive, but it really shows how deep his connections go and how well he was able to source these interesting pieces. I actually had the chance to meet him at the MACNA down in Atlanta, which was a really cool opportunity. And I really hope that this video can kind of take you guys into Reef Builders Studio the same way that I got to see it for what it really is. A lot of times we focus on, in this hobby, the new equipment and keeping everything pristine and clean, rather than focusing on the corals themselves, the health of these animals. And everyone is different, but these displays that he had were really unique. Some corals that I've not only never seen before, but all of these corals I've never seen before all together in one tank, which is really just breathtaking. And I hope you guys can take away the same thing that I took away from this, which is just that it's such an amazing place. And Jake Adams was such an amazing guy. And it really is such a shame that we lost him. And I really just want this video to reflect how important he was to the hobby as a whole, but also to me personally.
This is the first tank you see right when you walk in. It's a Red Sea Nano tank all in one, and it's got a pretty cool mix of different corals. It's really well grown in. You can see these Yuma mushrooms are all over the rocks growing. That's a theme throughout this whole studio. A lot of really well grown in corals. It's got a pair of clownfish and a little dotty back there that you can see. So a little more unique fish there, and a lot of different varieties of corals. You've got some zoas, some grandis pallies, as well as the mushrooms, some digitata, as well as some leathers. Right, so this is the first tank you see when you walk in. This is called the Chalice Palace. Of course, it's pretty obvious why. This thing is filled with beautiful chalices. You've got some of the classics like the Raja Rampage and the Rainbow Chalices, as well as some OG ones like the Hollywood Stunner Chalice. It's got really low light, which is harder to tell in the video just because it's set a little whiter here, but it is definitely lower light, which they love. The chalices don't like a ton of light. They also like a little bit dirtier water, and so this tank, you can see, has them nice and fat and happy, and they look fantastic in here. I am a sucker for chalices, and I really love all the different varieties in here all mixed together. If you guys have seen our store tour, you know I have a grow out tank that is full of chalices just because they're so cool and unique. They have a lot of colors you don't see all the time, and because of that, I just really enjoy having a nice mix of them. Now the fish stock is pretty simple in this tank. It's a pair of Anthias, a flame tang, and a black clownfish. They've also got the parameters written on all the tanks, which is really nice to see. So connected to the Chalice Palace is this leather cube filled with pretty much every different type of leather that you can imagine. It's got some different pieces in here as well, like some chalices and some zoas, but for the most part, it's all the different leathers that you could possibly see. Cabbage leathers, toadstool leathers, long pulp leathers, even some cool fish like this arc eye hawkfish, in addition to some gorgonians in here and some xenia in the back there. This is a really neat gorgonian. It's actually photosynthetic and a little quicker growing. You can see nice, beautiful angel there. Now the setup for filtration is pretty simple. It's a roller mat, a skimmer, and a return pump. nothing crazy. These guys like dirtier water, so this is perfect for them. You don't need anything super strong to help filter it out too much, because it'll actually end up hurting the corals. AP9X Kessel, which is all the light you really need for these guys. They don't need a ton of light. They mostly feed off of the nutrients in the system. This is the fish only tank. It's a little light. It's got some yellow tangs, yellow eye coal tang, a zebra tang, and then actually a hybrid yellow and purple tang, which is really neat. They're pretty rare fish, so it's amazing to see one in person. So what I think the crown jewel of the studio is these two display tanks here. These are some of the nicest display tanks I've ever seen. These tanks are super well grown in. You can tell that everything has been growing in here for a while, and they're really the perfect centerpiece to show off what the studio is. These guys are filled with really popular and beautiful corals like the Jedi Mind Trick Monty and these Bernardoporas, some Cali Tort. There's the Jake Adams Immortal Tort in there, as well as some WWC Little Red Ferrari, some red dragons, a lot of different acros like this Echinata that's a classic piece. But what's different about this tank is that they're all growing together and they're all massive. A lot of times you'll see tanks where there's just these small little frags. They're not really grown in because there's so many of them. These tanks don't have the most corals in the world, but what they do have is very large colonies that are really sizable and grown in, and more importantly, they've all kind of grown together, and so you can see where corals end and begin, and it's kind of a mix of different pieces that have been crusted in certain areas, and a lot of unique pieces, like the Cyphastria growing all across the bottom, something you don't see all the time. Even some Xenia in here, which is something a lot of people are afraid of. Now on the other side of that tank, you can see some of the Bernardoporas, some different varieties there, as well as really cool branching Cyphastria, one of my favorite corals for sure. Some super interesting deep water acroporas here. This one I believe is the Locani acropora, which is really unique. Some tub stellata, some German blue digitata, which is a really unique piece that has polyps that really kind of shine in the lighting, as well as some more branching Cyphastria, the Immortal Tort there, as well as another large chunk there. Some other really cool deep water acroporas that have some super cool smooth skin growth patterns. Some more Monty, as well as, of course, some of the classic Bali Green Slimer. This is one of those pieces that all the old stick heads had and have kept. That's a little harder to find nowadays, actually. And since this is a peninsula, you can, of course, look down the end of the tank, and this view is absolutely incredible with all these sticks coming up and towering and the fish just swimming through them. It really is a beautiful sight to see. And this one is the other peninsula tank. This one is a little bit more of a mixed reef. You can see the giant chalice there. It also has a few more softies, some leathers, some mushrooms. Also has some stylos, as well as some ganies, as you can tell. It also had a few acros, some digitatas, some blastos, as well as my favorite piece, which we'll get to in a moment, the branching chalice. Also has some torches, as you can see here, something that the other peninsula didn't have. These really beautiful stylophoras that really shine under the white light. There's some Montipora digitata there. That's the grafted variety. Some more acros, of course. Almost every tank in this place had acros in it. They're definitely one of Jake's favorites. Some Phavites war coral here, a real classic piece that's been in the hobby for as long as I've been in it, and even longer. You can see the blastos there in that shaded position. A lot of times blastos will enjoy the shade. It's the perfect place for those guys. And of course some meteor shower Cyphastria there. Now here is my favorite piece, the branching Echinopora. This is a branching chalice. It's a super unique piece, and this is the first time I've ever seen one of these, and I really am trying to get my hands on a frag of that one. It is absolutely stunning. This tank is one of the most unique tanks that I've ever seen. This is a mangrove tank where the bottom half of the tank is like a normal tank. You've got some leathers as well as a carpet anemone in there with some clownfish and a flameback angel, and then up top is empty and you have these massive mangrove trees. You can see they use really long kessels with the narrow lens to focus that light down onto the mangroves, and these guys are absolutely beautiful. Not only are the leaves and the branches just incredible, but underneath you can see the roots of these guys have really taken hold and they've been formed into this really nice looking shape that looks like the bottom of a mangrove forest. So display tanks are really a reflection of the person who created them, and I think this one really exemplifies Jake Adams' reefing philosophy super well. Of course, there's not going to be any sand in this tank. He was very against sand because it's just a not necessary element to the environment. But more importantly, this tank is filled with unique pieces. So all of the bird's nests here, some pavona, you can see there's some of the echinata there, some Astreopora, which is a piece you don't find very often, this unique grafted Cyphastria, you can see a tongue coral there, some Turbinaria hiruensis. Here's some more of that branching chalice that's absolutely incredible, a really unique piece. The Turbinaria hiruensis there is super bright neon green, unique looking acro here. I'm not sure on the species of this one, but it is really cool polyp extension. Some scroll corals, a piece that used to be a little bit more popular back in the day, but now just isn't, so you don't really get to see it a lot. Some more bird's nests, some more hiruensis, and this really cool grafted Monty here with the green and purple. And this overall is just an amazing tank. Now this tank is all flowy stuff. It is a mix of Euphyllia, and then on the back glass it's actually got a bunch of different varieties of Galaxia, which is really unique to see. They've actually been attached to the back there and they've started encrusting. So those guys have really long super tentacles, so you need to give them space, and I think this is a genius way to separate them from the rest of the corals. You can see there's a really incredible mix of torches, frog spawns, and hammers in this display that really just make it look like it's all alive and moving, and gives you a really nice mix of colors as well to create a palette of beauty.
So I think I've said this for every tank so far, but this one has some really unique pieces in it, obviously. This one is mostly Lobos and Echinata, Achaean Echinatas. So it's got really nice orange hues in it. It also gets hit by the sunlight here, so you get really interesting colors on it. There's also a really cool plate coral here, some Fabias, more coral Favites. Overall, this tank is a lot of low light stuff, so there's a light mounted here a little bit higher. And with the sunlight, it definitely gets plenty of light. This one, along with all the other tanks, if you noticed, is bare bottom. It's because the sand can actually harm the ecosystem. So after a while, that sand, if it's not cleaned regularly, can build up a lot of nutrients in it. And then if you do go to clean the sand, it'll actually release those. Additionally, if you have a power outage, the sand can consume oxygen, or release CO2. So that could be harmful in the case of a power outage because you wouldn't be able to provide enough oxygen and you might starve off some of the fish. This one has an amazing candy basslet in it. These are a really unique fish that you don't see very often, and this one has fantastic coloring. It's a really chunky, healthy specimen. You can tell it's been cared for very well here at the Reef Builders Studio. So once again, we got a tank with unique corals in it. So this one has some really cool snake polyps. These are one you don't see very often just because they're not the most attractive. But there's actually a red variety here that I've never seen before that looks really unique. It's a soft coral. It kind of grows up in into a chute, but it really is a little more uncommon, mainly just because it doesn't sell very well in the hobby, so a lot of people don't bring them in. But this red specimen is really unique. It's also got some really cool Christmas tree worm rocks that are in here. This big guy here is definitely the centerpiece. The Christmas tree worms are really cool because if there's any movement or light, they'll shoot back in and get back into their little holes, but they'll go back out pretty quickly. They're very similar to feather dusters, but they're gonna have a little bit more of a taller cone on them, and a really neat piece. There's also a few different Astrea portas here. These are another piece you don't get in very often. I have one right now at the shop that I'm actually probably gonna frag up soon, but I really just brought it in to grow it out because I really like it. It's a unique piece. It almost kind of looks like a chalice or a mati. It is an LPS coral, but it's a really unique looking piece with sort of longer tentacles than a mati or a chalice. That looks really cool and has some nice bright green in it. There's also a few different Ghanies in this tank that look really nice and fat and healthy, and some Turbinaria Kiroensis as well. That was definitely one of Jake's favorite pieces, and it all looks really good and happy.
So the next tank here is a bit of a display refugium. It's got some macroalgae down at the bottom as well as some anemones up top. It's got this really unique Clarkie clownfish that's absolutely beautiful. You can see it's got a Colorado sunburst. Of course, we're in Colorado, you gotta have one of those, as well as some bubble tip anemones there, some classic rainbow bubble tips with a clown that's very happy hosting those guys. And you can see some of the red Graciala macroalgae in there, along with that cool Clarkie with a little bit of blue.
Right, so these are the coral flats. These are attached to the two tanks in front of them. They're all in one system, so they have the filter in the back with the skimmer. They're on calc reactors as well as they have calc stirrers on them. Overall, it's a pretty impressive setup. They are stacked full of different corals. It's a little tough to film because of the acrylic here, but we'll do our best to kind of show you guys all the different pieces in here. But it's a lot of different stuff. There's acros, there's zoas, montes, galaxia, mushrooms, a lot of different unique pieces, just like the rest of the studio, that are real collector's pieces that we don't really see all the time.
So while you guys are enjoying some of the eye candy from these coral troughs, like these beautiful Grandis pallies, I want to talk a little bit about shooting this video. It was really incredible to get full access to the studio. I don't think I really did all the fish justice, and that's mainly just because I was so engrossed in all of the amazing coral. So I hope you guys enjoy at least that part of the video where I go over all of the different corals, but I just want to let you guys know that there are some really incredible fish, like that Swiss candy basslet, that I wasn't really able to focus on as much because I was so locked in on all the unique pieces that I've never even seen before, even in my years of experience in the hobby. Now the next tank is next to the mangrove display. This is a freshwater tank. It's got quite a few different fish and plants in it. Some really cool, unique ones like a loach in there, that as well as some other tetras and varieties. It's run off a Seachem Tidal, which is usually a saltwater hang-on back filter, but it does really well here. So on the back side of the other peninsula here, we've got another freshwater tank. This one has some larger angelfish in there. This guy has some really good size to him. He's pretty massive. There's also another smaller angelfish in this tank, and then it's got a really unique looking scape You can see it's got the driftwood there with some plants growing out of it. These really beautiful lights that have narrow beams on them to really target the plants in there. It's also got rocks around the base of that driftwood. And the final aquarium in the studio is this beautiful planted tank. Now, I'm not much of a freshwater guy, but I definitely, like most saltwater enthusiasts, got my start in freshwater. And this tank is pretty cool. It's got some flowering happening over on the side. It also has some neon tetras in it and a ton of plants, and there's also some shrimp in there. It's a little hard to see. This tank is really nicely grown in, and the tetras just kind of dart around and add a nice pop of blue and red coloration to it. There is a big Kessel on this light, and it's actually got a narrow lens on it, so what that does is it focuses the beam in the center.
Alright guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this tour of Reef Builders Studio. I know I did. This has been a dream come true for me. I've wanted to come here. I've been watching it on YouTube for years now, ever since Jake first set it up. It's really incredible to see in person. I just want to say thank you to everyone who's watched our videos, ordered from us online, supported us in any way. You guys have made this possible, and I really appreciate everything you guys have done. Even just clicking on a video and watching it, subscribing, liking, commenting, everything. It really means a lot to me, and I just want to say thank you for allowing me to have this experience. This has been amazing, and I've really enjoyed it, and being able to do this is really special. Thank you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I will see you in the next one, and make sure to subscribe so you guys stay up to date on our videos.